If you need water, just make yourselves. Sharon, when you talk with this, don't hold it down here. Keep your hand in the middle, because if you hold it here, it blocks your sound. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Leah's trying to figure out how to put her headphones on. You put one on each ear.
I was turning it on.
All right, you got it? The audience has their headphones on. All right, good afternoon. My name is Lloyd Day. Welcome to the home of Sustainable Agriculture of the Americas, the last session of the day, I believe. This session is on elevating farmers' voices in climate action. So, we like to talk about Norman Borlaug. Norman Borlaug had a saying. He said, "Take it to the farmer." So, that's really what this pavilion's about. We formed this pavilion because we didn't feel that farmers, especially farmers from the Americas, were being listened to in international forests. So we formed this pavilion here now for 3 years running, and so we're excited to have this panel. I'm going to pass it over to our moderator, Dr. Margaret Ziegler, who is ICA's representative in Washington, D.C., to moderate this panel, and I trust she is going to keep it as efficient and timely as the last panel. So, over to you, Dr. Ziegler.
Thanks a lot, Lloyd, and welcome everybody. This panel is at the end of the day, but I see we've got a lot of energy here. I hope we've got some farmers in the room, because when we get close to the end, I'm going to actually turn it over to the audience because I want to ask farmers questions first. You get priority in this session. We're going to actually try to have some dialogue. Instead of just talking at you, we want to hear from you, particularly if you're farmers. And the panel really had its genesis last year, working with our wonderful partners, U.S. Dairy Export Council, our other partners in the room here. We began saying, what is the missing perspective? Well, the missing perspective is that of the farmer. And we really felt like last year in Dubai at COP28, things got to a different level, and we're trying to take it to a new level this year and carrying that forward to Brazil, to Belém next year. We really want your ideas for how we can elevate the farmer voices in this dialogue. We really believe that we need to deepen the understanding of the impact of climate negotiations on them, and we need to make sure that farmer voices also feed into the dialogue in the climate change, particularly the nationally determined contributions in each country and the National Adaptation Plans. So this is a farmer-led panel. We're going to explore the tangible impacts of climate change on their farm operations, their work. We're going to showcase the work they're already doing to adapt to climate change and to contribute to the global goals, food security, as well as adaptation and mitigation goals. This panel will also talk about what's achievable. We want to really, I kind of call this panel, Let's Get Real. We really need to hear from them about what is possible, what they can do, and what they need to do more. This session is also going to focus on bridging a gap between policy making and on-the-ground practices. So I'm going to start right now with just recognizing first Marilyn Hershey, who's with us. I'm going to give you a chance, each person a chance to introduce yourself. But I'm just going to note that Marilyn is a Soul of Rurality leader. She's one of the leaders of Rurality of the Americas, which is an award that ICA has given, and also Goodwill Ambassador of ICA. We recognize her role as a woman dairy farmer leader, and we thank her for joining the panel. So if you just want to say a few words about your farm, what you do, and then we'll go down real quickly, just a minute or two, about from each of you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, Margaret. My husband and I have a dairy farm about an hour west of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, and we are about 40 minutes north of the Chesapeake Bay. And I also am chair of Dairy Management Incorporated, which is the dairy checkoff for the United States. It's the checkoff where all the farmers pay into for promotion and research.
Thank you very much. My name is Sharon Cherono from the Kenya National Farmers Federation. So Kenya National Farmers Federation is the umbrella organization of farmers in Kenya. We call it Sauti ya Mkulima, that is Kiswahili, meaning farmer's voice. And our core mandate is lobby and advocacy. We have our strategic plan 2022-2026, and in the strategic plan, we have 7 pillars, and one being lobby and advocacy. And we have member services where we provide market linkages to our farmers. We do farmer health insurance. And on pillar number 3, we have sustainable agri-food systems. We also have pillar number 4 being on youth and women, where we have a very strong KENAF Young and Women Council. On pillar number 5, we have the farmer-driven climate action, where we do agroforestry, farm forestry, and biodiversity conservation. We have ICT also in farming, being pillar number 6, and on 7 is on partnership. Thank you very much.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Lee Winowicki, maybe an outlier here. I'm a soil scientist, and I lead the global research theme on soil and land health at C4ECRAFT based in Nairobi. I also co-founded the Coalition of Action for Soil Health, which has over 200 members, 45% of which are farmer organizations and NGOs, so we're really proud of that. I actually do have a small farm in Limuru, Kenya, and do not buy any vegetables at all, only from my farm. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good evening. My name is Andrea. I'm the Secretary General for the World Farmer Organization. I'm an agronomist at heart, and I work in all major continents directly with farmers, both on arable and livestock, and with government. The World Farmer Organization is an umbrella organization that brings national farmer organization representing family farmers from more than 55 countries, 81 national farmer organization, and our vision and goal is to bring the voice of a farmer where he must be heard the most, which is in international fora and process, and to give them the space that they deserve to bring their advocacy through also enabling network like we are here today, and also return to them towards program of capacity building and facilitating their possibility of connecting, knowing each other, and granting position through global policy that we develop through our consensus-based approach in a pure multilateral spirit.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm going to start with you, and we're going to come backwards. And I have a question for you. Just each answer very quickly. In each of your views, what's the biggest challenge in translating those climate policies into actionable steps on the farm level? What's the biggest challenge that you as farmers or you as farmer organizations face in taking a policy and actually making it work on your farm?
Well, I don't have a farm compared to the other 3 around the panel, but I would say that for us, what we have noticed through our member, the biggest challenge is at country level that ministries that work on climate and environment do not talk effectively with ministries who work on food and agriculture. Whereas merging the two agenda at country level would increase the efficiency of implementation of action that can address farmer issue in adapting to and mitigate climate change. So that's where we pin our action, is to bridge this gap, to make sure that farmers are involved and through their farmer organization or directly at all levels in the policy discussion to co-create, co-design the policy and the process going to impact them the most.
Yeah, so that connection between the farmer and the policymaker is just not always there. It's not always there, the connection.
It's different countries have a different declination of this, but we notice more and more time that the lack of closing their circle is where it brings up the challenge where policies are designed and farmers, they found themselves at the end of a decision-taking mechanism where they simply cannot apply what has been designed without them. And operating already on tight margin with an increased number of demand that sometimes oversee the primary goal of farmers, that is sustain themselves and their families, so economic actor, is already putting a major strain. I will sound a bit of a broken record because I said it multiple times. If you are in the red, you cannot go green.
Oh, like that.
Yep.
That's a good tweet. Okay. Lee?
Great. So for me, I'd like to change it a little bit and talk about maybe what could make it more relatable. And one of the things from the science perspective is developing policies that are actually based on evidence. And specifically looking at the evidence of farm impact of agricultural practices across many hundreds of thousands of farms, not demo plots, not scientific research stations, but really understanding what farmers are facing, how climate, how land management is impacting soil health, productivity, income, and then developing policies based on that real data, leverage this data to have policies that are really more helpful and supportive of the farmers. And one example is looking at the NDCs. I don't know if Sharon, if I'm speaking out of turn, but the Kenya NDC is very much based on forested lands. But we know that 80% of Kenya is drylands, rangelands, and then important agricultural systems. And if we're really going to achieve the NDCs in Kenya, we have to engage with farmers. Farming, food systems can be part of the climate solution, adaptation and mitigation. So that would be my ask, my hope, my wish, and also what we're really leading the charge at the Coalition of Action for Soil Health and C4ECRAF.
So they've just left out farmers and focused mainly on forests.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is
Sharon?
less than 20% of the land.
Sharon, so what is your challenge with implementing climate policies on your farm? Do you think that they're too stringent in your country? Are you able to implement climate policies or relating to agriculture on your farm? Or what kind of support do you get in achieving those policies?
I think the main challenge is that farmers are not involved in the formulation process. So it becomes difficult for them to translate it in practical. It's not practical for farmers. So I'll comment on what the Secretary General mentioned, that there is a gap between policymakers and the farmers. So farmers should really be involved so that they can present the hands-on experience and problems that they face at the ground.
Okay. Marilyn, are you, it sounds like there's probably a bit of a gap, but what are you doing to close that gap in the United States? Are there examples that you can share that perhaps there were initially some problems? I don't know if you want to comment maybe on water policy in the Chesapeake Bay or any of the policies that you have to try to implement, and what's the feedback loop in your circumstance?
You know, it's interesting. You know, you look at the panel up here, and it's very diverse. Okay, but it's also, when I look across our country, it's diverse, and it is a challenge. What works in my area and my farm doesn't work in the West and in the South. And so the solutions, we know agriculture has solutions, but when it comes to implementing those solutions, we have to realize that, you know, even in Pennsylvania, in our state, the farms are very, very different, whether it's in size or style or, you know, the type of farm you have, whether water quality is an issue or water quantity is an issue. And, you know, what are the solutions you're doing on each farm? You know, so you have to ask yourselves those questions, and you know that the answer is going to be very different. And so it is difficult, but it is something that we are definitely addressing.
So are there examples from maybe each of your contexts that where maybe there is an opportunity to get that feedback in more early as these policies are designed. Maybe through collaboration with universities, scientists, or cooperatives. Maybe I'll start with you, Sharon. What are the opportunities to collectively inform policymakers about your needs and the real impact of what they're doing, let's say, in the capital?
Thank you. The main opportunity, of course, is working with the farmer organizations. So the policymakers work with farmer organizations to get to know what farmers really are going through. The other thing, of course, is farmer organizations working with research institutes, and at the global level, we are lucky to have the World Farmers Organization to address our issues really well. Thank you.
Actually, in Africa right now, we are at a really important tipping point. We just had the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit. Almost all countries have signed on to the action plan, the 10-year action plan, and the Nairobi Declaration. And this includes developing national soil strategies. And I think there's this amazing opportunity to make sure farmers, farmer organizations, researchers, NGOs, government are all working together to develop these national soil strategies. So I think if we get it wrong, it will be our fault. We really have an opportunity. The floor is open. The conversation has been open to everyone, and it's our responsibility to make sure we're there and inputting into this action plan and the implementation. So Africa Fertilizer Soil Health Summit.
Well, obviously for us, we rely on members like KENAF that already are engaging at national level to be the guidance for also other members on how to do the same process and work together through our constituency mechanism to distill from the different experience and knowledge global position that we allow to go to be together, so WFO as convener with our members in moment. And to especially for this, I want to cite the fact that WFO here for COP29 and the COP, the UNFCCC process, lead and coordinate the farmer constituency, which is WFO members, but also beyond WFO members, in the pure consensus and multilateral value that are at the heart of the farmers, are not even of WFO. The farmers, by own definition, are generous, are inclusive, are an active member of their society, of their communities, and WFO want to bring this value at global level, engaging where their voice is needed. So for us, obviously, the advocacy starts from the success or the challenge on the ground of our members and try to distill what are the common traits, either that lead to success or lead to an impasse, and bring that message and this cohesive request of being heard, of work with the National Farm Organization as the cornerstone and the pivot of an engaging and meaningful building politics mechanism.
And do you feel like you're being heard? Do you feel like you're beginning to be heard?
We have been recognized, and it goes to the credit to all active members that have brought their voice everywhere from different processes. But being at the table is not enough, is never enough. At the moment, the farmer constituency is just an observer at the UNFCCC, and in other process where I also engage, we are at the table, but we want to, as has been said before, farmers and in the agri-food system, there are solutions, there is innovation, there is idea how to cope with the constraints that are coming from climate, from finance, or international market, or national market. We have the solution as farmers. You just need to involve us in the design, the co-design of the policies. And well, we are almost getting there, but we never lose the optimism and the strength and the force that comes to WFO from all our members, that every day, and through their members, the farmers, every day they work the land, they manage forests, they manage resources, and in that we draw the fact that in farming and livestock and forest management, there is a solution to the problem they are facing today.
Great. Marilyn, you want to say something? I can tell.
Could you tell that? So USDA a few years ago implemented the Climate Smart grant initiatives, and really a program that is very new in the research, but providing grants for cooperatives, organizations, farmers to research some of those solutions and do some on-farm research projects or market research, and just trying to find those ways to be able to enhance those solutions that we know we have and maybe kickstart them and get them started.
And those are going to be providing a lot of learning that could also be shared with other parts of the world, not just the United States.
Absolutely, and I think that's the plan. And then how do you scale it? So it's not just a one size, like it's been mentioned several times, not just on this panel, but today I've heard it. It's not one size fits all, and we can't expect solutions to be one size fits all. So absolutely, we will share the research.
So I want to turn a little bit now to technology and how that can maybe help advance the cause of what you're doing, particularly if you can bring really clear examples of success to share with policymakers. Wanted to know from each of you, what role do you see for technological innovation in building resilience, and especially smallholder farmers? And then sometimes we think technology maybe sort of like a silver bullet. Are there some challenges you have with using technology that you maybe need some additional help with those technologies? But what role do you see for innovation and having that inform policymaking? Let's start with you, Sharon, and go down the line.
Thank you. I'll give an example of what we did during COVID in Kenya. We introduced USSD platform where farmers could dial and get information about market. During COVID, they could not go to market, so they could just use the platform to access market, customers, and even the weather information. So technology is helpful, and it's important when it is accessible, it's reliable, and it's sustainable. So technology, as we think about technology, let's also think about the farmer, the smallholder farmer. Is it something that the farmer can operate? Is it something that the farmer can get, so that we don't introduce something that is complicated and it will not also help the farmer? Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm going to talk about technology in terms of how we generate evidence to inform the policy. So there are really important knowledge gaps we need to fill about the performance of agricultural systems on different ecosystem services, social and economic benefits. And with technology at C4ECRAF, we actually have a robust monitoring design where all the data is input in electronic data entry. And so we're actually collecting data with farmers on the farm, and it's already organized. This is enabling us to do big data analytics and to provide the much needed evidence. The second example is now we're talking about needing to monitor 1 million hectares across Africa, for example, and the AFAR 100 is 100 million hectares. So now we have embraced citizen science where farmers, pastoralists can geo-reference their farm, tag what interventions they're doing, and then visualize it and see and track it over time. So this has really enabled the much needed large scale data collection. And then of course, once we have all this geo-reference, we're able to produce very accurate, more than 85% accurate maps of soil organic carbon, soil pH, erosion, tree cover, herbaceous cover, all these key biophysical indicators. And so now that we finally have these big data sets, we can now support governments better to provide the evidence. We're not going to throw the evidence at them. That never works, right? It's about supporting and alleviating some of the constraints they have on the reporting.
And you think that's going to be useful for them as the NDC is coming up again, 2025, the new commitments for each country. and will that be really useful? I imagine.
We have 8 policy briefs from 8 different African countries where we've actually worked with the NDC committee, not just reviewing their NDCs, but working with the NDC committee to understand why they didn't include soil health. A main reason was this evidence, the tracking of even small changes in soil carbon, for example, over time. And now many other countries, including in Latin America, have come to the Coalition of Action for Soil Health saying, can you support us on the NDC update? Can you support us? How can we do this? So I think we're making small breakthroughs, and it's really exciting.
That's fantastic.
Well, sorry, I'm really unable to be multifunction like you ladies. As WFO, we are in a privileged seat to see how our national farm organization, they are responding to innovation and technology adoption. There are, and I will not make name, but there are organizations that are rolling out financial tools based on the phone to help farmers to do financial transaction. Other farm organizations that developed in-house their own AI to support farmers in the decision-making process for farm management. Others that are operating with classification of practice to adopt the most functional, let's call it climate smart agriculture, or farmer or climate friendly, or you can hear thousands of names today, nature-based solution, etc. The thing is that there is a let's say tendency of relying on innovation, and sometimes there is a lack of involvement on farmer in co-design the innovation, and that's pose a threat for adoption and use and integration, and what's the burden. We are entering definitely a period of data, and probably data economy will be another gold mine, potential gold mine for farmer, but it also poses a lot of threat. Who owns this data? There is a lot of discussion on carbon and how we measure it, but today there is even a more basic question on if a land tenure system is not clear, who belongs the carbon credit. So we measure, and how we ensure that all this effort that now is bestowed upon farmer of measuring, how is made sustainable? What technology are there? Who can support the farmer in this new challenge? And how we ensure that farmers are rewarded also for this, let's call it digital harvest, that they are doing in their activity, which can feed important and relevant information at national and global discussion. In the panel today, we mentioned NDC and NAPs. Well, they will need data. Data need to be collected. Will be another time that everything is unloaded to the farmers, and beside their actual job, they also need to measure, and they are not going to be rewarded for this activity. Or there will be a new joint effort that sees more actors along the value chain at the government level to recognize that this is a job that is much needed, and such as every job should be rewarded.
Thank you. We have a group, I don't know if they're here today, Carbon Asset Solutions, that are really trying to provide those kinds of tools to farmers for that deep soil measurement, adapting it not only for row crops but also for smaller scale farms, tropical areas, to help farmers rapidly measure and capture all that carbon in the soil, carbon data. Those are the kinds of things I think that are needed, quick, easy things for farmers of all regions, all scales, to be able to have those tools. How often do you think it brings value to bring policymakers to the farm? How often do they come to the farm? Do they understand what's actually going on in the farm? Are there examples where doing that can help? Lee?
Of course, it's always important that we all go to the farm and to the field as often as we possibly can. One thing I've noticed in many countries in East Africa, a lot of the policymakers are actually from agronomy background, from soil science background. And so I find it really easy to connect them with farmers and to get them to think about the farm, because they actually have a background in this, and it's quite exciting. And that's why we also have so many member states in the Coalition of Action for Soil Health from Africa, because they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm actually a soil scientist. Yes, I have a farm. Yes, I have cattle. And so I think that is a positive, but I think it's really important that we bring them to the field, and maybe Sharon can talk about how she gets them to the field. And
I think that's a great follow-up. Sharon, how can those smaller holders get your voice into these, not just general policy, but the NDCs? How are you doing that? How can smallholder farmers in Kenya do that? What are some strategies?
The good thing at KENAF is that we are organized in a way that there is organization from grassroots level, the least in the structure of the government, that is the ward level to the sub-county level to the county level, and then now as at the national level. So it is easy to reach out to farmers. It is easy to get their views on policies and to get their feedback if they feel like it's not well represented. So I feel like the structures that that we have at KENAF really helps a lot. And this also helps because the government of Kenya, in agriculture in the government of Kenya is devolved, and it is at the county level. Yeah, thank you.
You know, for me, I'm 2 hours north of Washington, D.C., so having inviting the policy makers out is easy. Usually once a year, we have our National Milk Producers Federation that will bring a bus of staff out, and anytime we see policymakers or, we go to the Hill and visit Congress or the Senate, we invite them out to the farm, and we've had several policymakers visit the farm, and when they see the methane digester working and they see how we're incorporating food waste into the digester and getting that out of landfills and creating electricity from the methane from the cows and from the food waste, their eyes are opened, and I think it's so important. But we also can't forget that our neighbors need to see the farm too. And even though we're in rural areas, our neighbors don't necessarily know where their food comes from either. And so Dwayne and I try to be pretty proactive and invite anybody that wants to see the farm, invite them out.
It's a great idea. And I liked what Andrea was saying earlier about how the farmers of the future are going to be data farmers. Data and energy and food farmers, and maybe even other functions as well. I know a lot of farmers are building multiple income streams and having people come and stay on the farm for farm stays. And there's ways to connect more and diversify income and get people to understand what's really going on a modern farm. And I think those are all wonderful and interesting strategies. I wanted to just maybe get back on to Andrea. I know that you're going to have to leave a little bit soon, so I just wanted to ask you a question. Can you talk a little bit more? I would like to hear more specificity about how you are trying to integrate farmer experiences into the COP negotiation process. How do you do that? And how can we help?
Thank you. Well, my God. So our process is to make sure that at the moment of the farmer constituency, all the information that our colleagues and members and farmers and representatives of farmer organization pay each other knowledge and exchange what is happening in the different negotiation, and then they go and they follow and then return, and we build throughout the year, not only at COP, but towards COP. So towards also COP30 will be the same for us, to continuous sharing and building this information and distilling a message based on what is happening on the ground. And that's the way how we can be helped. But that for sure advocating also for us to make sure that farmers are at every seat. We were discussing before bringing the politician to the farmers. Fantastic. I would like also to see the farmers that enter in where the law are made, to also see and maybe come out with open eyes like politicians do when they see an aerobic digester, also how policies are designed. Hopefully, also they are consulted and not only that's seen on their own eye. You mentioned about the diversification of income stream that farmers can be. That speaks of a new covenant that need to be done across the value chain of the agri-food systems. We are in an era that I think that we have in this strange conundrum where I've seen more and more people talking about food without knowing where the food comes from. And that speaks of a broken link that we all together, especially us that we have a stake in a healthy farming system where the actor of the value chain, the private sector, retailer, governance system, financial insurance institution, they look at as a system as a whole. And this agri-food system, this food system in a plural manner, is actually our investment, is our diversification portfolio on the future. So we need to protect them because it's there that all the solution and adjustment and adaptation to climate change sits. Last but not least, it's important that there are this opportunity for income for farmer, but let's not forget that this other opportunity should not be income replacement. There is still the main effort of farmer, that is food production, food and fiber productions, that is still poorly rewarded all around the world. And if this alternative stream of funding are treated as income replacement and not income integration, that's we're really not walking on the right path.
Great. All right, this is a chance now for those of you in the audience to engage a little bit more with our panel. And I'm going to give about 3 or 4 questions to the audience. And I hope that if there are any farmers in the audience, you get to go first. I'm only going to ask you when I recognize you that you just state your name, where you're from, and then ask a question. Don't give a general speech. So just and be specific in your question, who you're asking the question to. So if anybody has a question, if you're a farmer, you get to go first. Raise your hand. Okay, in the back.
Thank you very much. My question goes to...
Can you say who you are?
Sorry, yes, I'm Joyce Kasioki, and I work for ICRAF together with Dr. Lee Winowiki. And I am a farmer in Kenya. I farm in Kibwezi.
Huh?
Yes, that is Makueni County. Our problem as farmers is market. You can have a very fresh produce, but finding the market is a problem. How can the Federation of Kenya Farmers reach out to farmers in Kibwezi? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. During the introduction, I mentioned that KENAF is a member-based organization, and pillar number 2 is on member services. And one of the services that we do is market linkage. So we offer market linkages to our members. So you need to be our member to get market. Thank you.
All right. Any other farmers in the room that you get to go first? Okay. Anyone else that's not a farmer, but you can still ask a question? Okay. I'm going to turn back to the panel and ask the panel, if you had someone in the room here who was not so much the agricultural negotiator in the process, but an environmental negotiator here at the UNFCCC, what do you want to tell them about what you're doing as agriculture leaders to make a difference in climate change and mitigation and adaptation? So a couple of you, maybe.
I would say soil quality is something we have always focused on the farm, because if we don't have a quality crop, we don't have a good feed to give our the food we're giving the cows is not quality. So we have always looked at ourselves as the original environmentalists, because we are caring for the land, we're caring for the soil. If we don't take care of our crops and our land, we're not going to be farming very long. And also we have an area that we can also add biodiversity to the environment. And we did that with it's called stream bank fencing. So 10 feet of the bank by the stream, by the creek that we have running through the farm is fenced off. And so there's a lot of forage, a lot of growth, trees and bushes, and so we have a lot of wildlife in there, small wildlife. But it's a nice area. We've seen a lot of different birds come back that we hadn't seen in decades, and so there's a biodiversity there on our farms that I think we haven't quite tapped into.
Okay. In Kenya, we have the farmer-driven climate action, and what we do is that we encourage farmers to allocate at least 15% of their land holdings for conservation. So we conserve water, so we also do a lot of tree planting, agroforestry, farm forestry, and I would say that farmers are the most affected by climate change. They suffer a lot. An example, in Kenya, we had flooding just the other day, and farmers were really affected. You can imagine losing everything, losing land, livestock, and all that. So farmers are really participating. They're trying to help in mitigating climate action and climate change. And farmers are participating. They are involved, and they are trying all that they can to help. Thank you.
Great. So I love the question, and I would like all negotiators and policymakers to think of soil as a unifier. So we all know that 95% of our food comes from soil, but do we also realize the critical role of healthy soil for ecosystem restoration, climate change mitigation and adaptation, biodiversity conservation, and of course, food and nutrition security? So we really see soil as a unifier across the 3 Rio Conventions, across multiple policies. While I did mention that the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit is developing national soil strategies, what we're actually trying to do is make sure that soil health is part of the nationally determined contributions, part of the NDCs, part of the agricultural policy, part of the OFR 100 restoration strategy, or if you're in Latin America, 20 by 20. Because without healthy soil, we simply will not be able to achieve any of these goals. And I think part of the problem we've made little progress in the past is because everything has been so siloed and so isolated. But now we have food systems on the agenda at COP, the climate COP. We had food systems on the agenda at the biodiversity COP, and we'll make sure it's next week at the UNCCD COP. And we really see soil as this unifier across these policies, Rio Conventions.
Soil's the baseline. It's from the ground up. Okay, Andrea?
So, well, a lot has been said, so I will try to be very brief on this part. If we return back to the heart of your question, so the environment negotiator component, I will ask mainly one starting point: to change the narrative on farmers as in opposition and the responsible for, in there can be farmers and farmer practice and nomadic pastoralist and fisherman can be a powerful ally in restoration of environment, can be a powerful ally in rebalancing carbon, rebalancing nutrient, reevaluate the important role of livestock, too many times demonized for lack of knowledge of what important role it plays in closing the cycle. For 10,000 years plus, farmers has been steward or custodian of environment. We know that there is imbalance. Farmers are ready to do their part, but you cannot start a conversation if the first statement is a villainization part. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work like that. You don't bring a positive approach in building a new narrative if the counterpart is an enemy.
Is there an opportunity to coalesce these messages and bring together everybody that cares about biodiversity, food security, clean air, clean water, soil health, mitigation, adaptation? Is there a way to get a massive statement from all of us for the next COP on the role of agriculture? Who can do this?
WFO stands ready on that, on everyone that sees in agricultural solutions that for us you have always an ally. And I know that I can speak for all our members, that they are only waiting for someone to join their journey in bringing up front the value and the solution and the innovation that sits already today in agriculture. And especially the young farmer, which will also change the narrative on that they are not the future of agriculture, are the present of agriculture. So in a situation like this, I think that we are very much welcoming for these joint voices with us, because yes, we want to think about a farmer-led transformation, but we don't want to be alone in this transformation.
Great. So now's the time we're going to just wrap up. We're going to just have 1-minute statements from each of you on what you see your role is, your personal role and your organization's roles between now, 10 months from now really, in Belém. What do you see? What's your commitment? What are you going to do before then?
For me, just keep telling the story and keep building those relationships that help us down the road. You know, we never know when that one specific relationship will lead to another and will lead to a connection. But it's telling our story and never stop doing that.
Our role is to advocate for inclusivity, to advocate for transparency. Thank you.
Great question. I think one is to really use the data and evidence that we've been generating at C4E to leverage the updated NDCs. We also, within the Coalition of Action for Soil Health, launched #YouthForSoil. In the first 24 hours, we had 120 mentees. We need mentors. We really are bringing youth voices to the table, to all tables, and even though you said it's not enough, but really being able to use the voice. So engagement with youth and leveraging the evidence we've generated.
Love that. Yeah.
Well, for us, will always be the same. Build the dialogue, be the convener, make sure that all the voices are heard, leave no farmers behind, leave no one behind. And myself try to be the best secretary for all our members, that they believe so much in the role and the value that WFO can bring, and that fills me with energy every day, and that will be my commitment towards COP30.
Fantastic. So I can't really represent ICA fully, but I will just let everybody know that ICA is going to have our biannual board meeting next year. And I know that ICA is committed to making sure that farmer voices are heard at the COP. We've been doing that every year in our pavilion, but we hopefully will do that in an even bigger way next year in Brazil. All of our board of directors, which are the ministers of agriculture of the Americas, will be there. It's going to be the agricultural COP. So we have 10 or 11 months to get ready, and we really want your voices as stewards of biodiversity, stewards of public health, stewards of nutrition and agriculture and food security and energy security. We want that to be recognized. So let's work together between now and then. We're open to your suggestions. Come to any of these panelists after this to volunteer or to share ideas. Come to Lloyd Day over here, who's hopefully still trying to keep awake. You need some coffee, don't you, Lloyd? But we're going to wrap up now, and I want to give a round of applause to our panelists. And thank you all for coming today. We hope you've had a great day at COP. And we're going to be starting tomorrow morning with a program at 9 a.m. with Food Tank, focusing on Vision for Adapted Crops and Soils, the VAX program. We will follow that with a wonderful conversation with our ministers who are here, ministers of agriculture. We have a really full day planned tomorrow, so hopefully you will all come back and be with us and have an enjoyable evening. Thank you again.